So this week we have a Packers versus Steelers matchup. The Packers coming in at 3-5, just off a win against the Los Angeles Rams. The Steelers sitting at 5-3. They have a minus 30 point differential, one of only two teams in the NFL to have a negative point differential and still somehow have a winning record. So it's going to be an interesting one in Pittsburgh, and I want to come in here and break down the game, previewing. I'll give my prediction, what I think is going to happen, give my score prediction at the end, and feel free to give your score prediction in the comment section down below. And I want to start off with this Packers offense facing off against the Steelers defense. Now, this Packers offense has had lots of struggles this season. We start off hot, we go through the losing streak, and then this past week against the Los Angeles Rams, we saw the Packers offense, I think, come together a little bit. It's not a great Rams defense, but still, it was nice to see the Packers able to move the ball a little bit more easily than they had in times past. And I think the biggest reason for the Packers' success last week, and one thing that hadn't really been there a majority of the season, was the ability to run the ball. The offensive line was run blocking much better than they had in the previous 4 games. Aaron Jones finally seems to be fully healthy from his hamstring injury. He had 24 touches, which was his most of the season. The Packers were able to run the ball for 184 yards, and I really do think that was a difference versus the Rams, because in times in the games before that, Jordan Love, the game wasn't really complimentary in the fact that the Packers couldn't run the ball. The Packers' offensive line was not run blocking, and so then when the Packers got down in games because their offense was struggling so bad in the first half, the Packers became one-dimensional. The other team knew we were going to pass it, and Jordan Love was inconsistent in that area. In this past game, we saw the Packers have a more full performance on offense, and I think that coming into this season, the hope was that the Packers' running game would be something that could be a foundation of the Packers team, and last week we saw it. And so now the question is, can it happen once again? Luckily, Aaron Jones is healthy, which means the Packers should be able to rely on him once again, and I think that's one reason the Packers' rushing attack has suffered this season, was because Aaron Jones has missed so many different games. But if we look at the Steelers' defense so far this year, they have not really been good against the run. They're 29th in rush yards allowed per game, which means I do think the Packers are going to be able to run the ball against this Steelers defense, and I would expect the Packers to feed Aaron Jones once again, because when you find a formula for success, you should, keep relying on that, and I expect the Packers to do that and find success against a Steelers defense. Now, looking at Jordan Love, his performance last week was very efficient. He played a really nice game overall. Very good second half. I think he was 6 of 8 on throws of 10-plus yards. We saw Dontavian Wicks have a great day. I think 4 receptions, 49 yards. Luke Musgrave had about 51 yards. We're seeing some of these younger players who the Packers recently drafted starting to make some improvements, and Jordan Love took a big step forward last week. And the question is, can he continue it here against this Steelers defense? Now, if we look at the Steelers passing defense, they're 25th in pass yards allowed per game. So they haven't been great. The area where the Steelers defense is pretty solid, they're the 8th best red zone defense in the NFL. So even though they're 29th in rush yards allowed per game and they're 25th in pass yards allowed per game, they have been the 13th ranked scoring defense in the NFL, partly due to the fact that they play well in the red zone and they have a very good pass rush on the edge. We have Alex Highsmith, who I believe has 38 pressures this year, and TJ Watt with 39 pressures. They have the 6th most sacks per game at 3.3. And the question is, can the Packers' offensive line hold up well against 2 very, very solid edge rushers? It should be a very, a tougher game for this Packers' offensive line when it does come to pass blocking. But the thing about this Packers' offensive line is they have not really struggled when it comes to protecting Jordan Love. If we look at the Packers' offensive line this year, when it comes to protecting Jordan Love, Love has only been pressured 29.1% of his dropbacks. Of quarterbacks who have at least have 30 attempts, which ranks 35th in the NFL. So there's been 34 other quarterbacks who have been pressured at a higher rate than Jordan Love. And so even though the Steelers do have a very good pass rush, and I assume they'll get to the quarterback a few times, I don't think this is a Packers offensive line that is going to get destroyed all game long. Now, it's going to happen from time to time. This is probably one of the better pass rushes, at least on the edge, the Packers will face this season. And so it does come down to, can the Packers protect Jordan Love? I think the Packers will be able to do enough to move the ball in this game, just because mainly Aaron Jones in this rushing attack. I think they're going to be able to find success, which should lead to at least some success in the passing game as well. Now moving to the other side of the ball. Kenny Pickett in this Steelers offense. One of the worst in the NFL. 29th ranked scoring offense. 24th in rush yards per game, 24th in pass yards per game, And Kenny Pickett is one of the most pressured quarterbacks in the NFL. He's the 8th most pressured QB, getting pressured on 40.6% of snaps per PFF. And so this Steelers offense has really struggled this season. I thought being in year 2 with Kenny Pickett, they would take some kind of step forward. And really this offense looks pretty stale, pretty unexciting. With Diontae Johnson back, there has been a little bit of uptick in the passing game. But still, when you look at the Steelers offense, I don't think they're, scary. I don't think the Packers defense is going to have a terrible time keeping this offense in check. And one thing we have seen from the Packers defense, where we had a few tough games in the beginning of the season, especially against the Lions, the Falcons, the Packers defense has played well the past few games. It has been against less top-tier talent, but still the Packers right now, the 10th best scoring defense in the NFL. And it really feels like every single game, opposing teams are able to move the ball down the field. Joe Barry, likes to keep things in front of him, not allow those explosive plays, and they'll just get, 5 to 10 yards, move the ball down the field. But then the Packers defense has been pretty good in the red zone. We have the 9th best red zone defense in the NFL. And so while at times it can be frustrating to see teams consistently move the ball down the field, the defense has been pretty good at keeping teams in check. And I think that when we look at the Packers defense, they've played poorly against better offenses, but against lower tier offenses, they've played pretty good. They played well against Brett Rippon last week, backup quarterback filling in for Matthew Stafford. So that was good to see, but still they weren't a great team. The Packers played okay against the Vikings. Kirk Cousins, I think, picked them apart most of the game, but they played well against the run. And so the question here really for me is, the one way the Steelers can, I think, have success on the Packers defense is if they can have the same success they had running the ball last week. Because if we look at the game last week versus the Titans, the Steelers were able to run the ball for 166 yards versus the Titans at 5.5 yards per carry. And I think the one way the Steelers win this game is if they are able to, consistently run the ball. And one thing to really keep in mind here and to look at is the fact that the Packers secondary is going to be a little bit thin, most likely. Jaire Alexander, top cornerback, has missed the past 2 practices with a back injury. That was an injury he was dealing with early in this or middle of the season, missed a few games. He has played the past 2 games, but clearly something is wrong there. He may not play. We'll have to keep an eye on the injury report on Friday to see exactly what's going on there. But Carrington Valentine, Packers 7th round rookie, has played pretty good. He struggled against the Broncos a little bit. He was being targeted when facing off against Cortland Sutton. But last week against Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, he played really, really well. And right now, if we look at Carrington Valentine, an interesting stat I found, he's played in about 4 games, or started in 4 games, and he's the 3rd best cornerback in the NFL when it comes to reception percentage allowed. So when he's targeted, he's only allowed receptions on 42.9% of targets. And I really love his mentality, his physicality, and I think that he is one of the reasons the Packers were willing to trade Rasul Douglas. I think they were hopeful that Valentine could take a step forward and play well, and he played really well last week. So there are a few good receiver weapons on this Steelers team, in Diontae Johnson, in George Pickens. And so my only worry here is I think I trust Carrington Valentine to do enough here. My question is, if Jaire is out, the Packers could put Corey Ballentine opposing on the other side at cornerback, and I'm questioning whether or not the Packers and Ballentine will be able to, keep Pickens and Diontae Johnson in check. The reason I'm not terribly worried about this Steelers passing offense is because Kenny Pickett just hasn't been great this season, and I think it's really been the Steelers' defense that has really kept this team alive. And it's pretty crazy to see that, you can have a minus 30-point differential, but still somehow be 5-3. And I really feel like the Packers and the Steelers teams are much more similar than the records would show. And the one area where the Steelers have been really good is turnover differential, +8 turnover differential compared to the Packers -2. And so the Steelers haven't really given the ball away that many times. I think Kenny Pickett only has 4 interceptions, where the Steelers have a total of 16 takeaways. Packers only have 8. And so I think this game really comes down to, keeping the ball safe, not turn it over. Hopefully Jordan Love can rely on the run, make the smart reads, not turn the ball over multiple times. Because if that happens and the Packers aren't able to force turnovers, it's possible the Steelers can come away with this game. But if the Packers can keep it clean, run the ball well like they did last week, Jordan Love play similarly to how he did last week, and the Packers defense, have a solid game, pressure Kenny Pickett, who I think they will be able to with Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith. I think the Packers can win this game, and I do think it'll be a close game. It's 2 teams that just aren't great right now, and 2 teams that I think, obviously need a win here to give themselves confidence going forward. The Steelers have been lucky that they're 5-3 and they've come away with close games and somehow find a way to win it. And it's going to be a fun game to watch in Pittsburgh. But now for my prediction, I'm going to say the Packers win this game. I think that the Packers took some nice strides forward last week. The Steelers offense doesn't terrify me. The Steelers defense, I think, will be able to run the ball on them. And so that's why I'm going to go Packers win this game. Jordan Love takes another, has another similar game to last week, and the Packers win this game. Let's go 24-17. That's my score prediction. Let me know yours in the comment section down below, and I'll be out with a reaction video after this game. We'll see if I'm right, if I'm wrong. Hope the Packers don't lose again. I'd rather be 4-5. It sounds much better than 3-6. So we'll see what happens here. Should be a fun one. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.